Welcome, fellow Toastmasters, and today are lots of guests. This meeting of online presenters has now begun. Now, guests, please note that in order to be a member of our club, hint, hint, you must be a current or former active member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 Toastmasters official speeches, or alternately, if you have substantial relevant presentation experience, you may apply for membership after demonstrating your ability in a 2 to 3 minute speech. But I think most of our contestants are doing a great demonstration today. Now, keep in mind that requests for membership are subject to approval by the members of our club. We don't have any renaming to do today because today we have a contest, but we do hope that you keep in mind that as a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language or word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to the vary in our cultural differences. Now, please note that we will be recording this meeting and your video or audio contribution may be used for club marketing purposes. Also, remember, we're going to remain ONMUTE, not UNMUTE. So we're going to be on mute for the duration. But remember, we have reactions, we have our faces. Follow me, let's get animated so we support our speakers. With his brand new haircut, looking all nice and ready to be the chief judge. But his other role is as president of online presenters. So help me welcome our president, David Carr.
Thank you, and welcome to everybody. Thank you for being here. The webinar contest is near and dear to my heart. It's something we've been doing since shortly after we started the club. You know, I'm not actually sure whether it was even my idea originally, but it's something that I've championed over time. And the concept is fairly simple. It's just that online speaking is different, and that it actually deserves its own contest format that is a little bit different than the International Speech Contest, where you have the license to use on-screen razzle-dazzle, but the trick is, do you use it effectively? Does it amplify your message, or does it get in the way of your message, or do you stumble over, oh, where are my slides? I've lost track of them. Which is something that we've all done in online presentations where things go a little bit wrong. And I suppose one of the things that we're testing you on too, or testing our speakers on, is how well they recover when things go a little bit wrong, as they often do in online presentations. Although if you've practiced properly, you'll be better prepared for those things. That's the theory behind it. Now, if anybody else is interested in this and would actually like at their own club or district level, there is a set of rules that's published on our website, which you are welcome to steal or modify. This is the basic scoring here. It's just sort of a hacked version of the scoring for the International Speech Contest, where there is a chunk of points that's awarded for audience engagement, for somehow creating a reaction from the audience. So I'll have a little bit more to say about the rules when I'm introduced as chief judge. But for now, I just want to welcome you here and thank you for participating in this. And I'll be acknowledging our judges later, because we're not following a lot of standard Toastmasters rules, including the idea that the judges all have to be anonymous. So we're going to introduce them briefly in just a few minutes and get a little bit of feedback from them at the end. Let me hand it over now to our contest master, Graham Cairns.
Yay! Thank you very much, David. Cheers, big applause, big ups. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, or good whatever it is, wherever you are. For those of us who are on this side of the international date line, it is Tuesday, and proof that your Monday may not get better, but it does get over. For those of you who are still pre-midnight, well, that's all right. Proof that, the world continues. I'm your contest master, today. We're not contest Toastmaster because this is not an official Toastmasters contest. We want to make that point very clear. We are not breaching the rules here by doing this. We're just doing something which this club does, which we would suggest that your club, area, division, district might like to do, as David has said, but it is not an official contest. We have 6 presenters tonight. We had lots more trying to be contestants, but there is only a limited amount of time that we have. And so the lucky draw was held effectively. I'm not sure how David did the draw, but in the end, we have 6 contestants, and they are in speaking order for the judges. Presenter number 1 will be Sunny Fridge. Presenter number 2 will be Andrei Smolenko. Speaker number 3, Mansoor Hasib. Speaker number 4, Kritika Devi Venkataram. Speaker number 5 will be Jessica Breitenfeld. And speaker number 6, Gregory Bunchox. So that'll be the speaking order. Now, as you have heard, the way that this contest will work is that each contestant is given 5 to 7 minutes to present their presentation. They will be judged, as you saw on the judging form earlier, on presentation, on audience engagement, on call to action, on, well, you saw it. I don't need to go through all that sort of stuff. How they use their 5 to 7 minutes is entirely up to them. If they want to present for 2 minutes and then take questions or audience engagement for 5, that's entirely up to them. If they want to use 5 and 2, that's also up to them. They get 7 minutes. So if their presentation is less than 4.5 minutes or greater than 7.5 minutes, then they cannot win. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo, that's the rules. We have a timekeeper. In fact, we have 2 timekeepers, but we have 1 official timekeeper, and that is Andrew Byrne. Now, Andrew, can I please ask if you can use the reaction button to stick your hand up, which has now disappeared. The reason I'm doing this is that Andrew should be in your top left-hand corner. But, contestants, I would urge you to have a secondary timing device, because as you will have discovered, when you go into full screen mode, which happens when you share screen, for example, you quite often lose track of the timekeeper. So have your own timing device, because it would be terrible for you to be disqualified for going under or over time and have an absolute cracker of a presentation that you might as well have not delivered because you're not competing because you're out of time. So have your own timing device. We have gone through all of the contestants. We have checked that their microphones are working. We have done all of that. From the contestants, are there any questions? Scanning the screen, I see no questions. From the chief judge, are there any questions?
I think you covered most of it. We should mention that Jim Barber will be serving as chat monitor, so he will assist the speakers. I think you covered some of that, and it's up to the speakers to decide how to allocate their time. I did want to take a moment actually to introduce our judges.
Yes.
Again, because that's one of the heresies that we're committing tonight, is that we have judges who we're acknowledging openly and celebrating having here. I have 2 people who I've dubbed our celebrity guest judges. Those are Roger Corville and Cheryl Roush. You guys can wave to the camera for a moment. They'll be giving some feedback to the speakers after we announce the winners. Roger's an expert on virtual presentations who helps speakers and trainers rise above the noise in the online world. And he's currently head of strategy at V2 LLC. Cheryl is a professional speaker for over 22 years, a top-rated international trainer, a virtual presenter since 2010, and an accredited speaker, which is an elite designation from Toastmasters International for professional speakers. She's the author of 17 books, including her Heart of the Toastmaster anthology. And again, also as somebody who came here and spoke to us early on, conducted a workshop, helped us get this club off the ground. I do also want to mention Carol Prahinsky, who's a professional speaker in her own right, an assistant professor of supply chain management at Michigan State University, a past international director and past region advisor for Toastmasters International. And she's not currently a member of the club, but she was one of the founders and she won the first couple of contests that we held, although the format was slightly different back then. Let's see. We have with us Judith Kidd, who's the program quality director for District 77. Joseph Esler is a founder of Tragic Comedy Toastmasters, and is one of the person who works with me the most to help improve the Toastmasters website hosting project. He's one of the people who keeps me honest. Claudia Sutherland is here. She's a member of my home club in South Florida, Club Awesome. And AJ Hernan, I just met through the Toastmasters International Members Group. When I reached out and said I could use a few more judges, she stepped forward. She's active in both District 26 in Colorado and Founders District in California. I think we've explained the important stuff at this point, and I should hand it back to Graham to get things started.
Thank you very much, David, Chief Judge, and also Chief Cook and Bottle Washer for this club. I thank you for all of your service as well. All right, in that case, let the contest begin. As I say, we have 6 contestants here tonight, each of whom will speak for between 5 and 7 minutes if they have timed it right. If they haven't, well, we've been through all of that. So shall we move to our first contestant? Contestant number 1 is Sunny Fridge with a presentation entitled How to Beat Fear at Its Own Game. How to Beat Fear at Its Own Game. Sunny Fridge.
Hello, everyone. I hope you are ready to get your game on. Raise your hand if you have heard of Udly. I say a few of you have. Well, when it comes to public speaking, Udly is your personalized speech coach. It's powered by artificial intelligence. I am Dr. Sunny Fridge, aka Dr. Sunny, and I'm founder and CEO of Speak and Shine, and I'm a presentation skills coach, and I am honored to be part of the Udly Coach Advisory Board. It's comprised of world champions of public speaking, professional coaches, professors, and we all get to weigh in on the future of Udly. I also love it for the wow factor for my students and adult clients that I get a chance to help become better communicators. Today, I will talk about the fear of public speaking, how Udly can help you improve your public speaking, and how you can beat fear at its own game. Quick question: what percentage of the US population has glossophobia or fear of public speaking? What do you think? Put your answer in the chat. Is it 35%, 50%, 70%? And Chat Monitor Jim, can you give me a few results? 35, 50, or 70?
Most of them are coming in on the high side, 70%, 90%, 85%, 78%, that sort of thing.
Wonderful. Well, if you guessed 70%, you are correct. And if you are a Toastmaster, it's probably no surprise to you that 2 out of 3 people are afraid of public speaking. And people rank the fear of public speaking higher than death. Here's a humorous take on that statistic by comedian Jerry Seinfeld.
I saw a study that said speaking in front of a crowd is considered the #1 fear of the average person. I found that amazing. Number 2 was death. Death is number 2? This means to the average person, if you have to be at a funeral, you would rather be in the casket than doing the eulogy.
Well, we have heard from Jerry, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I want to hear from you. I invite you to take this poll by putting your answer in the chat. What's your biggest fear when it comes to public speaking? Is it fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of success, judgment, selling, embarrassment, fear of inadequacy, fear of competition, fear of leadership, or fear of people? Put your answers in the chat. Chat monitor Jim, give me some results.
It looks like fear of selling is the #1 response. There are others, but selling is carrying the day.
Wow. Thank you so much for your answers. I am going to say that fear of forgetting what I'm going to say is my big answer. Now let's talk about Udly AI. Now that we've learned about fear, if you struggle with fear, you can use Udly because it's your personalized speech coach that provides real-time, actionable judges and judgment-free feedback anytime you speak. Udly is that AI speech coach, and it helps you with your communication skills. And if you're a Toastmasters, it's free of cost because Toastmasters International is using Udly's AI speech coach with 300,000 of its members globally.
So many smart people around the world, women, immigrants, other underrepresented minorities, have the skills, have such intelligence, but not necessarily the skills to back themselves up when they speak. I built Udly with this mission in mind of helping people get the skills, practice, and become more confident in the way they speak so that they're able to get the opportunities, credit, visibility they deserve, etc.
Well, and that was Udly co-founder Isha Yoshi, who spoke about her why for starting Udly. Now that we've found out a little bit more about Udly, Ralph Smedley said, we learn best in times of enjoyment. So it's time now to get your game on. I am going to work with you to let you know a little bit more about how Udly can help you have fun while you learn. We're going to play a game called Spin a Yarn, and it is one of 4 games on the Udly AI website. You'll be given a topic to speak about, and you will have the opportunity to see prompts that will pop up on your screen, and you can incorporate them in your story. You score a point on every prompt you include in your story. So in this webinar, I just need one person that I'm going to promote to be able to speak. May I get one volunteer? Jim, do we have any takers? Just
I
one.
don't see anybody yet.
No takers. Well, I'll
It
say.
looks like Tiffany is raising her hand.
Tiffany, welcome to the stage. Come on in. Come on in, Tiffany. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we're going to play this game. You are going to have 30 seconds. Do you want it to be easy with the game time? The prompt will change every 8 seconds, medium every 6 seconds, every 4 seconds hard, or monster every 4 seconds. Which will it be?
Medium.
Medium. All right, way to go. All right, Tiffany, we are ready to start playing. Take this topic and then watch those prompts. Here we go. What is the silliest thing you did when you were very little?
Oh, yes. I did so many silly things with my dolls. I would throw them across the room just to see if they could fly. And then we would hold an election to see who was the best pilot. Then that's when the kittens came over and wanted to vote in the election. A cat even ran for president, but it didn't take office because it got run over by a truck. Well, it got run over by a truck, but I used a screwdriver to scrape it back off the road. So that was handy. And it needed a couple of therapeutic shoes after that, but they did the trick. And so we've had chemistry together ever since I saved the kitten. You know, doll safety and cat safety is now my priority. I wouldn't leave cats near a needle for sure. The end.
Way to go. Let's everyone show some digital love for For Tiffany, she had 7 hits, 2 misses, and a score of 5. Think of how you can play this game in your Toastmasters meeting or with yourself. Today, I have shared the fears of public speaking and how Udly can help reduce your fears of public speaking and how you can have fun as you become a better communicator. Because remember, there's going to come a time when you're in a presentation and perhaps someone's going to be on their smartphone, or a cat crosses the screen during a Zoom meeting, or an audience throws you a curveball question. You've got to keep speaking. And this drill helps you think on your feet and stay focused. So remember, if you play spin a yarn every day, you'll learn to think on your feet and you will be able to beat fear at its own game. Contest Master.
Thank you very much, contestant number 1, Sunny Fridge. I'll now give the judges a minute to do some tabulating of their results. So I could sing for a minute, I could tell dad jokes for a minute, but instead I'll just be silent. That's 1 minute. So, Andrew, if I can get you to turn off the red light. We'll move on to speaker number 2. And that's Andrei Smolenko with how to better handle confrontation. During this webinar, Andrei will show you a simple and effective way to handle any confrontational situation with your family, friends, and colleagues at work. You're welcome to write your questions in the chat, and Andrei will try to answer them at the end of the webinar. With how to better handle confrontation, Andrei Smolenko.
Ladies and gentlemen, in this webinar, as you've heard, I will try to show you a simple and effective technique on how to better handle confrontation. Well, for me, it all began with mistakes. Well, yes, confrontation with my 16-year-old daughter. If you know how it feels, please raise your hand up. How to confront a teenager? Oh my God. You can't be late for school. How many times I can tell you? Well, needless to say, it just didn't work. Well, yes, I'm trying to be a responsible father, of course. I want the best for my daughter. Don't we all? At the same time, I'm a bankruptcy advisor as well. And on my day-to-day duties, I just have to talk to my clients who, let's put it softly, spend their money recklessly. And I try to explain that they have to stop spending credit cards on expensive champagne because it was not on their budget. Again, I failed. It didn't work. Well, then I decided to just try to find a way that could help not only me personally, but could help clients in my business as well. I went on a search and I did find one effective technique that I want to share. And I hope when you try it, it will change your life. The technique is called FBI. Feelings, behavior, impact. Feelings, behavior, impact. Well, this formula has been widely used and used again by Simon Sinek. Yes, of course, that famous author of Start With Why and Leaders Eat Last. I'm sure most of us heard about that gentleman. In his view, that formula, FBI, feelings, behavior, impacts, must be used to confront in most of the life situations. There are few things you need to bear in mind when you use that technique. First, you have to be specific. Very, very specific. General just doesn't work. I will demonstrate in a number of examples after I've given you those few points, and I hope you will understand these points better. The first being specific. Two, you have to say all three things about how the situation made you feel, what exactly happened, and the impact of that negative situation will continue happening. The interesting thing that's it doesn't matter the order. You can mix and match, and they can play with the order again. Again, if I'm speaking too loudly, or perhaps not enough, you can put the questions in the chat box, and Jim Barber will read out your questions at the end of the webinar, and I hope I will be able to answer them. And then thing number 4, the important thing. After you said all those three things, zip, just shut up. Well, let's have a look at my unsuccessful encounter with my 16-year-old daughter. You can't be late for school. How many times I can tell you? Well, darling, when they rang me this morning from school, I was quite surprised that you were late for school. And unfortunately, if those late things will continue to happen, I will have to take you to school myself. Any parent knows your teenagers don't want that to happen. So in my view, that would make my daughter a bit more accountable for her actions. And the next example about the client who spends credit cards on expensive champagne, I could have said, sir, when I check your credit card bank statements for last month, I've noticed that you spent $1,000 on champagne. I have a fear that you missed your mortgage payments. And if you continue doing that, your family might lose their home. Yes, FBI works, and I've tried it with my daughter, I've tried it with my clients, and I can say, yes, it's working, not miracles, but it's working. At the same time, FBI can be used for positive feedback, not only confrontation. It's something that you could even try at your Toastmaster meetings, when you call up and to give a feedback. For example, the title of this webinar is How to Better Handle Confrontation. You could have said, Andre, when you name your webinar like that, you made me feel really curious. I wanted to learn that miraculous technique you promise us. And if you continue using that powerful titles, you will get better engagement from the audience. Voila, something like that. So it can be used in different ways. And now, perhaps, if you have any questions that Jim would like to mention them now, that would be great.
Andre, nobody has submitted a written question. Maybe somebody has something live that they want to ask.
Well, since the audience has no questions at this moment, then I assume that formula FBI really works. And if you have any, you can always put those questions or comments in the personal chat to me, and I will come back to you. Hopefully, I will be able to answer them. To me, when you facing a difficult situation in life, in work, or indeed you want to help someone to grow, please remember FBI, feeling, behavior, impact. Try it. Back to you, Mr. Contest Chair.
Thank you very much, Andre. Thank you. And now, again, we will give the judges 1 minute to complete their results. That's 1 minute. So we'll now move to our third contestant tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Toastmasters and friends, please welcome Mansoor Hasib with A Perfect Childhood. A Perfect Childhood, Mansoor Hasib.
Hello, everyone all over the world. When you face a problem, do you focus on the problem or the solution? Type a P or S in the chat and let us know. Also give us reactions and comments throughout my speech. It's natural for most people to focus on the problem because problems create intense emotions and worry in our minds. I learned where to focus during my childhood. And now I will share my story with you. My father led by example. He taught me a lot of things I should not do. He was generous and innovative with punishment and never needed a reason. If we were out in the yard and his leather belt wasn't handy, he creatively discovered a new use for young papaya plants. Many plants sacrificed their lives to teach me life lessons. Some lessons had lifelong impact and left permanent scars on my mind and body. He gave me my one elongated ear, but he pulled on it every time I came near. He gave me my flat and flabby nose when he taught me to defend myself from his fast and furious blows. Even my hair loss started early from all the twirling and pulling. If you think I'm a little loopy, you now know why. He never taught me to ride a shiny red motorbike. One day, as he slept, my brother and I crept in, borrowed the keys, and took it out for a joyride. And we learned how to survive a road accident and how to avoid being killed by an angry mob by appealing to the indiscretions of our youth and blaming it on Dad. He taught us how to start it, but he never taught us how to stop it at a red light. It worked. The mob escorted us home, and berated Dad for letting us ride without a license. It scared him enough to cower in shame and hug us. And for once I learned what a father's love must feel like. Suddenly, 5 days after my 11th birthday, he abandoned us. A typhoon of emotions and worry gripped my tender mind. Would I be sent to an orphanage? Would my education stop? Mom sensed my angst and applied her calming balm on my frazzled nerves. Focus on solutions. If you focus on problems, you will lose sight of the solutions. Find ways to market all your skills. We will not eat meat or fish every day, but we will not starve. You need to earn enough money for your education and books. Wow. Relieved, redirected, and challenged, I reached deep into my talents and launched my first small business making hand-painted greeting cards with a message in rhyme written in calligraphy. I walked to people's homes and tutored children. I taught Bangla to foreign workers, and I taught singing and guitar. And my story earned me a full scholarship to Brandeis University and made my improbable life in America possible. Friends, the accidental circumstances of our birth may create unique obstacles, but they never define our destiny. No matter what problems you face, focus on solutions, not the problems. When you focus on solutions, problems lose their prominence and fade into the background. Live this principle, and you will be unstoppable. If you agree with this principle, give me a thumbs up, post your feedback in the chat, and let us know your thoughts. And finally, don't feel sad for me and think that I had a bad childhood. No. Mom, whose guiding light still shines on me eternally, taught me to heal and live a positive life, to focus on solutions and not the problems. While my dad, despite his imperfections as a human, was an excellent negative example. And that, my friends, was a perfect childhood. Chat monitor, let me know if there's any question or comment in the audience I should respond to.
I didn't see any questions. You got a bunch of thumbs up. But no, I don't see any questions. Everybody responded positively.
I thank you very much. Appreciate it, everybody. Over to you.
Thank you, Mansoor. Thank you, Dr. Hasib, for that presentation. We'll now take 1 minute for the judges to deliberate. 1 minute has gone. So we'll move on to our next contestant. Contestant number 4 is Kritika Devi Venkataram, and her speech title is The Donut Story. Kritika is a tech professional with a decade of experience in developing, delivering, and managing firmware products as a technical manager. She loves traveling, cooking, and gardening. So with The Donut Story, Kritika Devi Venkataram.
The Donut Story. This is an adaptation from the original fable, The Tortoise and the Hare, from a Greek storyteller Aesop, rehashed to depict the management theory. Here are the personas. The hare and the tortoise story is quite popular. There was a brisk hare and a lazy tortoise whose names were Ivan and Leo. Leo was overconfident and slept during his course of race, eventually left the race. His natural skills was ruined because of not being idle to his condition, a foul behavior, and complacent about his progress. Moral of the story: slow and steady wins the complacent, though fast. Here comes part 2. Now, Leo is pretty much careful about his position. He's sorely sorted out on his failure. Leo is now prudent not to stop in between. He's secured and he wins the second race. Moral: fast and consistent always wins the slow and steady. Here comes part 3. Ivan is now trying to strategize so that he could win the race. He proposed a different route where he has to cross the river, reaching the finishing line. Unfortunately, Leo, the hare, is not aware of this trick, fall into his trap. By the end, Ivan wins the race. Moral here: identify your core competencies and then change the playing field to suit your competency. Now, the story is not yet over. Part 4 continues here. Working together over a period of time, they learn to be together and they know what their skills and strengths are. They developed a good intent to work as a team. Retrospecting their past races, now they wanted to have a new race, a collaborative teamwork for themselves. This time, they worked as a team. Leo accepted to carry Ivan on his back till the finishing line, where the part of the river would be concentrated by Ivan. Swamming Ivan into this action was fabulous. The Brown study by spectators teach being sagacious. This also says the brilliance, the core competencies harnessed in a proper team yields accolades. A vital lesson they learned is when to stop competing against the rival and when to start competing against the situation or the issue. Now, here comes the donut story. The donut story begins now. Here are the most prominent personas. Ivan, the strategist. Leo, the proficient. And Perry, the market leader. They have totally different place to run their race. It was highly difficult for them to predict in this race. It's because it is a race of innovation adoption, which means you need to adopt innovation strategy. This was carried out by the diffusion of innovation theory, which means a way new technological and other advancements are being spread out throughout societies and cultures. This is greatly influenced by the society's and adoption rate and the behavioral change that the society adheres to. What are required? They have to learn from the competitor. They have to trigger onboarding cycles. It is not that easy. What they wanted in return is to bridge the gap using the chasm of innovation, setting appropriate goals, review the progress, achieve milestone. By this time, Leo, Perry, and Ivan realized their strengths, their performances, their metrics to improve, building a strategy for competitive positioning. Now, here's a quick rapid fire round for you all. Just log into menti.com and type in the code. Here is a link to you on the chat as well. I'll share the screen meanwhile. Log into menti.com and type in the code. Now, who is the conductor and narrator of this story? Here is a quick check or a kind of information which we need to understand from this learning. Here, the dignified big wheels, please, fastest hands on the screen. I'll give you 40 quick seconds so that you can log in and submit your results. Do you think directors belong to the same organization? If so, just log in your results. Log in your submissions. And what kind of analysis was carried out by the narrator? Okay. And who are the personas? The last question is, who are the personas? Are they buyers or the brands? Fabulous. Fabulous. Now, here comes the fabulous thing, our results. I'll just quickly end the collaboration and give you the actual results. The brand personas, the brand is the persona, and SWOT analysis was carried out. Okay, let me give you the glimpse of what we have as a recap. As a donut is fluffed using yeast, we get elevated, the innovation adoption gets elevated by the customer adoption. Thus, success is elevated only through customers' adoption. Over to you, Toastmaster Graham. Thank you.
Thank you, Kritika. Thank you for the story of Leo and Evan and the wolf. Time now for a minute's consideration by the judges. That's a minute, so we'll move on. Our next speaker is Jessica Breitenfeld with a presentation entitled The Whole Story. The Whole Story, Jessica Breitenfeld.
What is round and sweet, brings joy to millions of people, and is the national sport of Canada. You'd think it was curling, but it's donut eating. We don't have a lot to do up north. You've heard of us, right? In our igloos with climbing trees, cutting down trees. We live for donuts. And as a proud Canadian woman, I renamed myself Dr. Denise Donut. These guys, it is a he, him. He brings me joy on those days when I'm like, why didn't I go to the gym? Comforts me when I'm feeling down on myself. And Forrest Gump had something to say about donuts too. Life is like a donut. Sometimes you got a hole. And as a donut philosopher, I have started to think, donuts are awesome. Life is awesome. That's great. Hollywood tells us everything should be great. Get the husband, the 2 kids, and after 20 years of marriage, a renovated kitchen. But sometimes, some days, every day, something happens. And we heard the FBI method. Yeah, Adri? Feelings happen. And then bad behaviors happen. So type in the chat box, not that you've done them before, but type in the chat box a bad habit that you've seen someone do in real life or in the movies. Maybe your favorite one of your ex-husband. Smoke. Yes, campfires. We hate them in Canada. Eating. People eating, not you. Don't hang out with people who drink. Drinking beer, eating donuts, Marianne. That's a Canadian staple. Smoking and vaping at the same time. God, they have a problem. Okay, digital phone using a meal with a friend or a client. That's not going to be a client for long. Christmas, eating French fries every day. These are very American answers. I live in Barcelona. No one eats French fries every day. That's funny. Sleeping Sunday too much. You should be at church, right? Yes. Hallelujah. I got this theory, guys, that you too do some bad habits. I don't know where I got that from. Call me a therapist or something, but I know that people do things that they feel bad about. Now, we're gonna pop out of the screen. So you're just gonna like do a little yoga stretch. You're gonna pop out of the screen so I don't see your beautiful faces. And when the sentence I say applies to you, you're gonna jump back into the screen. Okay? Pop out or turn the camera off if you're feeling lazy. Come on, Sunny. You can do that yoga move a little bit better. Yeah, Tiffany's going slow, but she's going. Okay. I have left the toilet seat up or down when I shouldn't have. Oh, what a surprise. Oh, we even have Timer Joni popping up there. Okay, pop out again. I have hidden the good snacks from my beloveds. Yeah? Oh, honey, we only had the cheap cookies at the store. I'm in the bathroom, just me? No, all of you. Oh, excellent. Okay, pop out one more. You have pretended to not hear someone when they asked you to do something you didn't want to do. Oh, not Toastmasters. We don't do those things. The problem, that was good, the little thing, Roger. That's me with fireworks in the background. Brene Brown has given us this freedom, the author of Vulnerability, right? If we are able to admit the holes in our lives, the things that we don't do well, we are freer, right? It's like 80% of the time. Well, I got a theory. Let me just see what you guys think. Type in the chat box. What percentage of the time are humans awesome, right? And what percentage of the time are they like kind of little crappers, right? Like good, bad, and ugly. What do you think? Like 40, 40, 60, 50, 50, a little yin yang there. Caroline, Chief Judge is Buddhist. He says 50%, 1%. Angela, cute. 95.5 says speaker. I'm very, your daughter. Who would say that about who? 100% in my dreams. Thank you, Rosie. In my dreams. Okay. And it doesn't help that social media tells us that we have to be perfect. Yeah. Where did Hollywood come up with that crazy idea that we have to have the perfect teeth, the perfect waist, and the perfect life to be happy? Who? Okay, now raise your hand if you know someone who is perfect. Right? And yet there's this obsession in our Northwestern America and North American culture to think that we're perfect, because it's embarrassing to show that we're having a bad day, a bad hair day, that we have loneliness. Has anyone ever felt lonely? Yeah. I spent Christmas this year alone because my sister-in-laws were mad at me. And it was this feeling of like, I feel lonely a lot. And there's this theory of 80-20. I got 80% of the time, we're kick-ass. 20% of the time, wah, wah, wah. And that's okay, right? Accepting that you are not great all the time makes everything. Oh, thank God you just changed that. Graham just put on the red. I almost had a little heart attack here. My goodness, Graham, bad boy. That was his 20% bad timing skills. My goodness. I had to cut out a whole paragraph. Okay. Whew, we're back. This 80-20 theory, it also works well in the business world. If you at your company and your family with your 16-year-old daughter, if you're able to accept that 20% of the time, oh, you want to disown them, you're able to look at them with empathy. And psychological safety has been shown to have two key components, and Toastmasters does this awesomely. Does anyone know the two key components of thriving teams, relationships that last? You know them all. Empathy and equal speaking time. These are the things that make things work between people. And so accepting, yes, I'm a donut addict, and I won't eat this still tonight because it's 3 a.m. in Spain right now. Embrace that 20% and cheers.
Cheers to you, and I want one of those donuts. Thank you, Jessica. If you're not going to eat it, I will. How's that? Thank you, and we'll now give the judges another 60 seconds to deliberate.
Oh.
There goes the minute. So we'll now move on to contestant number 6, Gregory Bunchocks. And Gregory's presentation is entitled, How Healthy Are You? How Healthy Are You? Gregory Bunchocks.
So in 1961, this man right there ended up winning Canada's Most Valuable Athlete. This man also, at 14 years of age back in Germany, played in front of 70,000 people, and he had also played in front of Pele. Now, this man is my dad. Obviously, he skipped a generation. But actually, I actually think I could have made that at that point, but I actually cracked my neck at 17. So that kind of changed my plans a little bit. But unfortunately, I was always in awe to see the trophies and to see all the newspaper clippings. In fact, I have one newspaper clipping still from Dad back in Germany when he ended up going back to play for the Bundesliga, where a goalie came down on his head and actually fractured his skull. So those are pretty interesting things to end up looking back on my dad's life. But the most interesting aspect of that is once the soccer is done, now what? So what was my dad going to do with the rest of his life? So now he ends up being it's his late 30s when he ended up finishing playing soccer and such. And okay, mom and dad decided we're going to have a farm. So they end up buying some land out in Water Valley, and he decided to end up buying some pigs. He was going to be a hog farmer. His brother ended up doing it, suggested it was a great life, so dad believed him and thought it was great. It wasn't that great. But anyways, at that point, I end up asking many of you, how many of you would ever think of a pig to be a pet? Maybe in the chat, you can end up putting your hand up to end up saying, yeah, I'd have a pig as a pet. Or no, would never even think about it. But I will tell you that they're amazing animals. When we ended up having them outside, what we would do is we would have to hand feed them. So what we would do is we would go into the corrals after we end up mixing the feeds, and we would end up putting it onto the into the areas where they could eat, and they did. So what that experience ended up happening for us is it allowed us to get very close to the animals. And then every so often you get close enough, you give a little scratch behind the neck, and they end up liking it. Next thing you know, you got an entire herd coming towards you because they're incredibly happy to just be lying on their back, just to end up getting a really nice big scratch right underneath the belly or underneath the armpit. And I tell you, you really realize that if you give love to an animal, you get back what you put out in this world. The amazing thing about those observations is when you started to see things like differences in their hair and differences in their nails and their hooves starting to crack and twist and such, my dad started making the association, well, this has to be something that they're eating. So he actually ended up going and getting feed testing from the government to identify that the feed that we actually got from the feed companies was toxic. So it was from that point on that I started then making a very close association between, well, basically we're a product of the environment. So I think you remember a lot of times when we end up being back in school, how we had to learn about our proteins and amino acids and things like carbohydrates and the fatty acids, the vitamin, minerals, and water. And if you're anything like me, you forgot it immediately as soon as you left that classroom. And you start to see it a lot of times more and more as we end up going on in these stages of life, when you start seeing people sick and such, and you start wondering, well, what's going on? We start looking at all the obesity numbers. We start looking at the diabetes and the pre-diabetes numbers. We look at all the ADHD from the kids and the cancer rates. And, you start wondering what really is going on. So what I actually did is I ended up creating a little bit of a survey here for everyone, and I'm actually going to end up posting that in the link for maybe everyone to even try this out for me for a test purpose. But I have a link that I've just basically ended up posting in there, and it goes into a project management system, and it has 3 simple questions to end up asking. It's a ranking system. You end up choosing the apple, so maybe you end up having, how would you rank your health knowledge? And then secondly, in a drop-down menu is, how do you know that what you're eating is healthy? And then in the last one, I end up having one that I really want to end up using as an interest is, do you believe that we are dealing with a human health crisis? And that's the one that's really of interest to me to see what ends up coming back in that respect. So when we start to consider human health aspects, we start looking at something as simple as wheat and all the things that we used to eat in our time, including a donut to be made out of this little product. And the thing that's interesting about this little product is when you start harvesting it, the actual interesting aspect is when you start using it for purposes, like even if we're making our breads and stuff, we get this unrefined bleached white flour. It basically ends up having just those, I can show right here. It's just right there in the starch. It's the genosperm, but all the nutrients is almost everywhere else. So when you're stripping all of this to make the bread or to make the donuts or to even make the hamburger buns, you have an entire market that's basically consumer driven to the thing that is on the shelf that doesn't get rancid, because unfortunately the vitamin E's or the oils end up getting rancid as soon as you take them through the berries, so it doesn't stay on the shelf for very long. So I'd be interested to end up seeing what you end up saying with regards to that survey for that respect, because when you look at the actual wheat itself, like the actual package, there's no nutrition in it. So they end up adding vitamins and minerals, but why? It's just basically a cosmetic appeal. So I'll start with ending the story here. This is actually my dad right now, and he's not in very good health. In fact, I've had to miss a couple of meetings as a consequence of it. But the symptoms that he's dealing with right now is he has absolutely no appetite. He doesn't sleep very well, and he has a lot of anxiety, and he deals with a lot of depression. So when you start to look at his diet, what's going into his body, just making the same associations as what we ended up having even with the pigs. Well, if you start to look at the human health aspect, that everything goes through stomach because of the methylation process, not to get too complicated, but it distributes all of these things that you eat through the 50 to 100 cells in the human body, through 100 million miles of blood vessels. So, and you need to have the proper chemistry in order to end up feeling or being healthy. So for an example, if you look at a protein like tryptophan, tryptophan makes serotonin, and serotonin is responsible for diet, sleep, regulating moods. So my question to you is, after he's been dealing with doctors for the last 2 years, dealing with so many problems with regards to his anxiety, with regards to his sleeping, with regards to his appetite, why is it that no doctor actually ended up making a recommendation of a higher protein diet? And that brings me back to what we end up talking about with you here today. I actually created a formula that can actually take what you eat and identifies almost immediately exactly what it is that that you could potentially be deficient in. And as a result of those deficiencies, actually find out if you can be proactive enough to actually avoid those health complications. And that is something that I've built, and something where I end up saying, are you that healthy? So in the survey, if you ended up filling that out, I'm actually going to do a random draw, and we'll do this as a test to end up seeing if you're actually close to being healthy as you think you are. Anyways, thank you very much for listening to my speech today.
Thank you, Gregory. Thank you for that. We'll give the judges now a couple of minutes to collate their results. Andrew, as timekeeper, can you please send the timer's report to the Chief Judge, David Carr, by private message, or however it is that you have arranged?
And also just a reminder to the judges, although we're deviating from some Toastmasters International Standard rules, one is that you're not to concern yourself with whether somebody ran over time. That's between me and the judges to work out. We may have had a miscue in terms of the timing lights being displayed at some point, so we'll count for that.
Yep. Yes. So, judges, if you can please collate your results, and then they're sending them to you again via private chat, I'm assuming, David?
Well, we're using a digital voting system, and one reminder about that is the top portion, the equivalent of the piece of paper that you fill out in a standard Toastmasters printable ballot. That's for your reference, for guiding you towards scoring everybody equally. But then ultimately you need to pick in order your preferred speakers and click the button that says vote. And we'll check in with you. You'll hear from us. If we didn't receive your vote, we'll be reaching out to you to make sure that we do.
All right. So I'll give the judges just another couple more minutes of silence for them to actually do their collation, and then we'll do the talking to the contestants bit.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll have a result fairly quickly if things go smoothly. Joni, could you move Marianne and I off into a breakout room?
The power of online technology. They are moved. You may continue.
Woot! All right. Judges, I know you're probably still collating, but I'm going to move on anyway. So, you know, because I mentioned earlier in the chat, I have spent 40 years as a radio professional. If there is one thing above all else that I abhor, that is dead air. I just can't handle it. It makes so no more dead air. I'm sorry. Everybody, please feel free to unmute yourself now, because I think that this is an appropriate time for us to sincerely thank all of our contestants today for giving crackers of presentation. I'm glad I wasn't competing, because I wouldn't have had a hope. Well done, every one of you.
Woo!
Yes.
Hey, congratulations, everyone.
Yeah, always worth a bit of noise there. Thank you very much. So, going to do the traditional thing where we talk to each of the contestants and then fill in for a few minutes while the judges are doing their judging bit. And we'll start with Sunny, with how to beat fear at its own game. Sunny, this is obviously a shorter part of a presentation that you give regularly, I assume?
That is correct. I have a free speaking workshop monthly.
Cool. You mentioned Udly and you know, using Udly for games, but it's more than just for games, isn't it?
Absolutely, but I didn't have enough time to share everything. You'll have to come back for that. But ever since I've learned about Udly last year, it's been amazing. It's a game changer. And as Toastmasters, we all love evaluation. Once you understand how Udly works, that you can actually do a speech, upload a speech, send your speech to others, that is gold. That's why Udly is a game changer for me. That should have been the title of my speech. It's a game changer. I forgot.
What do they say about hindsight? It's 2020 vision. But no, thank you very much for your presentation. Andre, I want to know, did you ever get your daughter to get to school on time?
Of course, Graham, because I've been using FBI very effectively. And by the way, using this opportunity, I saw one of the questions in the chat. They say, so what you do if you still receive negative feedback? And for example, you use the FBI on my daughter, and she said, oh, you know that, the bus got broken, and then my friend told me that, and it told me that, and blah, 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 blah. And then you just stay calm, and you repeat your statement again. And then if she goes, what? And again, and then it's supposed to work. And yeah, it worked. It worked a few times.
I assume you reword it, because you know, if you use exactly the same.
Exactly the same. I know it sounds really, really strange. And I use exactly the same word to word. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, sometimes I guess it doesn't. Now, you've mentioned that this is in part the work of Simon Sinek. Obviously, you have a soft spot for the good Dr. Sinek. What other lessons have you learned from him?
Well, the number of lessons that I learned from Simon. First is after I read the book of Why, probably many of you heard, or at least read the book, just always trying to ask myself, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this excruciating contest with such an excellent speakers? Or why I'm staying late at night? By the way, I'm from Manchester, and now it's almost 2 a.m. in the morning. So, and sometimes I get an answer, sometimes I don't, but that big why really, really helps.
Fabulous. Thank you. And thank you for your presentation, Andre. Now, moving to Mansoor and the perfect childhood. Mansoor, you had down at the very end of your presentation a book, which unfortunately I couldn't see the title of because of the nature of the presentation. Tell us about your book.
One of the things that I've always believed is that everybody has something unique to give to the world. And the problem with society is that we are so focused on average because the business world wants you to be average. They want you to be replaceable. But you see, people are not replaceable. And this is something that people have forgotten. So when the pandemic hit and the millions were getting laid off, I decided to take time off. I took a sabbatical from my job. I actually resigned because I said, I've got to help these millions of people. Because see, I had become financially independent from 7th grade. As you heard from my story, I was doing my first small business at that age. So I helped people understand that they are a brand, they are a business, and nobody is unidimensional. For example, a job doesn't define us. We define the job in our own image, and each of us have multiple skills to monetize. And this book is a guide for everybody to discover what are the monetizable skills they have. Put it all down. They might not want to monetize everything, but whatever you monetize and how to do it in a digital global world, because the world is your market. Everybody's out there who is a possible customer. The book, Carolina, well, if you're in the USA, you can get signed books from me directly at a discount. But otherwise, Amazon, of course, has it, and wherever. And it's also available in the libraries. For example, I wanted to make sure that money was not an object for people, because when I was growing up, as you saw from my childhood, I didn't have a lot of money. So libraries, particularly American and British libraries in Bangladesh, were my lifeline. And that's what helped me educate myself to come to America. So all my books are available in libraries all over the world.
Fabulous. Mansoor, thank you very much for that. And we shall check them out. Moving on to our fourth contestant, Kritika. Now, Kritika, I got to say this was an unusual presentation from you. You've used visual support material before, but this was a different take from you. Did you enjoy being able to take a story that we all know the moral from and giving us different takeaways from it?
Of course, it gives me like immense pleasure to present something which is known to you in a different way. Storytelling, the art of storytelling comes into picture over here. Here, I should also add to my answer, like preparing wasn't the challenge. Wasn't the challenge? Why am I doing? What is my intention was the challenge. And that paved me to do this presentation.
Well, as somebody who's watched you grow over the last 6 to 8 months in this club, I got to say, I love that presentation. And I must admit, I had never thought of, I mean, we all know the story of the hare and the tortoise, but the thought of using the different synergies from that story in a business context was something that I hadn't thought of doing. So well done. And I congratulate you for that. Jessica, where can we get those delicious looking donuts? Where do you get those in Barcelona? No, seriously, I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you.
Was this part of a longer presentation that you would normally deliver, or was it something that you designed for this?
No, I'm working on a keynote. I teach about can-do culture to companies, and I'm trying to market myself as a motivational humorous speaker. So I'm really trying out, like, you know, our American style of humor and trying to be a little bit corny and interactive, and getting the feedback from Cheryl and Roger is really valuable to me. So I tried something a little bit more corporate slash, you know, a little bit different than I would do.
You mentioned that you're working on becoming a keynote speaker. I think it's interesting that many of the paths in Toastmasters end with an 18 to 22 minute keynote presentation. And I know that some members have avoided doing those paths because they don't want to do the 18 to 22 minute keynote. I love them. And in fact, I would much rather do a path that ends with a keynote than ends with a high performance leadership project. But do you find that you mentioned using humor? How hard is it to be inspiring and humorous at the same time?
Well, you tell me. You know what it's like, Mr. Radio Man. About 42% of the time, nobody laughs. And that hurts a lot. So you just go, well, I thought it was funny. And you move on and you try again. Because when they laugh, it's worth it. It's worth all the pain and sweat and rejection.
Terrific. Well, thank you for your presentation. And even if it is 3 o'clock in the morning, feel free to eat that donut. So there's no hole left. Gregory, I know that the results are ready to come in, but we'll get to those in a moment. Gregory, this is an interesting presentation. You've given variations on this before. How difficult is it? Because you've got an awful lot of things you want to tell us. How difficult is it to distill it down into 7 minutes?
brutal. It's probably one of my biggest flaws and one of my biggest things that I need to work on. And you're right, I'm the same as Monsieur. I have all the information for a book right now. So, I mean, I'm working on that as well. I mean, I've put courses together. So the information, I've worked my ass off for the last basically 5 years to basically connect health to the plants and everything that's going into the human body. So, so yeah, trying to narrow this down into specifics. I actually did some pitch contests to try and generate some interest, networking as such. And trying to do it when you're encompassing like almost an entire course and trying to do a segment of it doesn't really lead to an entire example of everything that you're kind of doing. So it's very challenging for me.
Well, you did a terrific job today, and I thank you. I thank, in fact, all of our contestants today for really genuinely inspiring us with your webinar presentations. Time now for the results. This is a competition. Competitions can only have winners and second place getters. No, seriously. With the results, please welcome Chief Judge David Carr.
Thank you, Graham. Thanks for keeping the audience warmed up. Sorry to be taking folks a little bit past our usual end time, 9 o'clock. And I know Jessica's up way past her bedtime because she's in Spain. So thanks for hanging in with us. I think we're going to make it worth it for you. I do need to announce that there was one disqualification. I won't go into any more details about that, but there was one. And without more of that, in third place, we have Gregory Bunchocks. Please unmute. Please unmute. Make some noise. Gregory Bunchocks in third place.
Great job, Gregory.
Well done, Gregory.
All right, Gregory.
Thank you, thank you.
Second place, Mansour Hassib.
Well done, Mansour.
Way to go, way to go.
Hey, Dr. Rashid.
And in first place,
Drum roll.
yes, big drum
Where's
roll.
Roger? Roger, give us a drum roll.
First place, we have Jessica Brightenfeld.
There you go.
Jessica, all right.
Good job, Jessica.
None of this disqualification for time stuff this time around. Thank you, Jessica.
She wore a watch.
Let's see. Let's see. I guess maybe we could spotlight our top three and take a picture of them. Joni, can you assist with that? Joni, are you there?
I see her.
Okay. Well, let's see. I guess I could do it too. Oh, let's see. We have one spotlight. There we go.
Pin. Mm-hmm.
And one more would be Gregory
Gregory.
in number third place.
There
All
you
right.
go.
There we go.
Yay.
Well, you know, we'll just grab a frame out of the video, but give big smiles. Big smiles. Was it worth staying up late, Jessica? I hope it was. All right. Congratulations to all of our winners. And we wanted to allow some time for some brief feedback. I'll ask the timer to time this like table topics. We were going to hear from our two celebrity guest judges. Cheryl's on screen right now, at least for me, she is. And so, Cheryl Rush, can you give a little bit of quick feedback to our contestants on what impressed you about tonight?
Well, what impressed me, as well as what we can all do to continue to improve, especially in this virtual kind of situation here, is remember not to be so robotic where the pauses are awkward. Create a conversation. So when I look at the judging forum, there's something else that I would add to it, and that is the factor of authenticity. I want to be spoken with, not talked at. So I want the words, the concepts, the feelings, all of that to come right into my spirit. I do want to giggle. I want to laugh. I want to be changed. I want to think differently. And I need connection in order to do that. So in addition to the judging form, which is well done, I look for authenticity and conversational tone. So if we were to go forward, whether it be online, hybrid, in person, create the conversation, have a dialogue, talk with, not at, not over, just heart to heart. As it translates into the Zoom environment, make sure that your camera is at eye level or slightly above, so that in positioning, you can really connect with that. There were a couple of moments that I really felt the connection. So Mansoor, when you leaned into the camera and you were talking about truly a father's love, that almost brought me to tears. It was so honest. It was so raw. And I think that the passion that each of you have for your topic, whether it be donuts or health, and we certainly had some diametrically opposed there. Then we had the tortoise and the hare, and how does a fable relate into today's workplace? So the diversity of your topics was really outstanding. The passion that you have for each of your topics is wonderful. I love it when you lean in. I love it when you ask us open-ended questions. How many of us, instead of do you or have you, make sure that we can continue to relate to the examples that you're using. Because if we can't relate, we're not connecting, we're not moved to action. I'll start off with those comments. This was, thank you very much for inviting me as a certified virtual presenter and as an accredited speaker, and just as a fan of online presenters, that you would invite me to serve as a judge tonight. So thank you. Congratulations to everyone who entered, because you stepped up. You are raising your bar, you're creating the excitement, you're stretching your skills, and there's nothing like a contest to make us do it, and that little window of 5 to 7. Back to you.
All right, wonderful. Roger.
Greetings, everybody. It is not 3 a.m. here in Seattle, but I'm tickled to be with you, and I love the mission of your crew. Hey, if there was a couple just very broad thoughts coming out of tonight, it would be this. One is to think more visually, and I know you do, but here's my point. Start with how the medium affects the nature of how we connect. And the question that I would ask you is the viewing audience of is the viewing experience of your audience, is it more like an in-person presentation, or is it more like television? And what is the nature of how Hollywood producers get and keep attention? I've done hours on that, so I'll just invite you to go investigate that. But honestly, that takes me to point number 2, which is to think about yourself as a director of attention. Where and how is their attention? Hey, over on the right-hand side or of your, down in the lower left-hand corner of your Zoom viewer, you see the mute button or the chat button, or, you verbally direct people where you want to go. And to that point, I will say this: you don't need to be on camera all the time. Kritika, I loved the visual nature of your background, and to your credit, you moved out of the way to make stuff happen. But at the same time, there's in television, we don't need words on the screen all the time because it's an audio visual, right? To the point that Graham often makes, I hate dead air. Yeah, but we have a visual medium, so it's okay. Dead air is okay here sometimes. My humble opinion. Think of yourself as a director of attention. Number 3, open your at-a-glance tools. To me, if you are standing in front of an audience, you see faces, you see hands and that kind of thing. A virtual audience can only get so big before you can't functionally keep an eye on all the cameras, right? But if you open up your chat button or chat box, you can respond and go, oh, timer 2 says trying to spotlight while see it, right? Chat monitor says everybody's terrific. Congrats to all, right? We can respond just like we normally do. And finally, I will say this: repeat yourself. We're in a shorter attention span environment. You gotta tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them, right? Good beginning, opening, and close. But in the middle, and I forget who I took the notes, but I forget who did it. But at some point, repeat yourself. Don't miss this point. At some point, repeat yourself. Because I promise you, somebody's looking away and not paying attention. And if you say it once, you missed them. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And thank you to both Cheryl and Roger. Roger, who actually I forgot to introduce him as Roger Corville, CSP. I'm sorry, which is one of his honorifics. But people here have lots of titles, and we have a very distinguished group. We achieved one of my goals for this evening, which was to give the speakers an opportunity to compete at a very high level against other very good online presenters. And any one of you could have, the scores were close, believe me. Let me open it up for just very brief remarks because it is getting late particularly for some folks. But any brief remarks from our other judges and other attendees as well. But for the judges first, AJ, Joseph, Judith, anything that you'd like to say about what you saw here tonight? Joseph.
Well, thank you so much for having me, David. I'm very impressed with this contest. You run a tight ship, and our celebrity judges, we can see why they are the celebrities here. Wow, Cheryl and Roger, I bow down to you. Really great feedback. I can only echo what you've said here. And something that I could piggyback on, though, is to think about who needs to hear your message. In the spirit of where other celebrity judges just said, just think about a specific individual or two and target it directly to those people.
Okay, terrific. Judith, you have anything you'd like to say?
I can say that I learned some tricks and tips on virtually presenting tonight from our contestants. And that's the one thing that I'm certainly going to take away with me. I love that. I love the pop-ins and pop-outs that Jessica did. I'm sorry, but I can't pronounce her name. I love that she stood in front of everything that was going on in the background. Our second, third contestant. So, these are tricks that I would like to incorporate with my own presenting when I'm encouraged or when I'm prepared to do something virtually. So thank you for that.
All right, very cool, very cool. And I think Jessica also demonstrated that your use of the virtual stage need not necessarily be technical razzle dazzle. It can be duck in and out of the frame. Which Mike Carr, no relation, I think kind of taught us in the first contest to be conducted online, is that the camera frame itself can be something to play with. AJ, I know you said you had to step away. Are you back? Would you like to say something? Carol Bransky, our at least two-time winner of this contest in its early form, and
Thank you.
I think contest master after that.
I want to congratulate all of these speakers today. I've seen a huge progress from back when I was a contestant in this group, and fabulous progress in both technology and your messaging, getting it across. I want to go back to this messaging idea though, and say, what is your message? I think some of our speakers really nailed it in getting their message across. And I encourage you, if you felt like, okay, maybe my message isn't as strong, figure out how to relate that to your audience. And that goes back to the previous speaker's point, which is thinking about your audience, and always be thinking about your audience and saying, how can I connect to that audience? How can not the audience in general, but you? How can I connect to you? And really focus in on the individual. All of us are individuals and we want to be talked to. All of us do. And that's what enables you to be successful in your message. Thank you, David. Back to you.
All right, very cool. And also, I know Graham and Jessica were talking. I missed it all because I was out of the room. But Jessica, now that you're the champion and there's none of this timing dust, disqualification stuff this time around, any thoughts that you'd like to share with the group?
I really liked hearing the feedback of the judges because they're like things that we see people do, and you're like, they're pointing out to us really how great that is to use the frame or to make it about the audience, and we think it's about us. And I love to make it about me, right? Of course, my ego is big in that way, and I'm like, no, always the audience, say their names, look at them, play with them, right? And it takes like, it's fighting the natural urge inside of me to like just take the limelight, right? It's really about the audience completely. And if you switch that, you have a lot more fun because you're like, well, I won, I lost, who cares? We had fun, you know? So.
All right, well, very cool. And again, it is late. If people need to sign out, that's certainly understandable. But is there anybody else, not necessarily a judge, but anybody else who would like to speak up and offer a little bit of feedback? Open call. Raise your hand or just shout it out.
Very briefly, as contest master, we can't say Toastmaster, it's not a Toastmasters contest. But as contest master, I want to thank, I want to thank all of the participants. I know there was, a couple of technical hitches, but I had a ball tonight. And, I always try to be ebullient and, hail fellow well met, but it was so easy because they were all so good. So thank you again to all of the contestants, and thank you to the audience, by the way, for being a terrific audience.
All right. You're such a lovely audience. We'd like to take you home with us. I'm something I can't sing, but at any rate, I think we'll sign off there and close out the meeting. But thank you all for coming. We will be sending out a replay of this and a celebration of the winners. And thank you all for being here. Have a great night.